This happened a few days ago. I'm a 35-year-old freelance journalist, and I've always loved uncovering stories. I thought an abandoned island would be a great feature for my blog. It could even help my struggling career. The locals warned me about it, saying it had a dark history. I brushed off their fears. I was eager for the adventure. I arrived at the dock early in the morning. The fog rolled off the choppy water. It felt eerie, heavy with memories. I took a deep breath and pushed off into the mist. My small boat bobbed along as I headed to the island. As I neared the shore, an unexpected chill gripped me. I stepped on a damp, cracked ground, looking around. The shacks and rusty boats told stories of life long gone, and my heart raced as I walked deeper onto the island. The air was too still, and I felt as if I wasn't alone. I shook it off, thinking I was just nervous. I walked along an overgrown path. The crunch of twigs broke the silence. I stopped when I saw an old house. The door creaked, almost protesting my presence. Inside, I found scattered photographs. Faces from decades ago, frozen in time, but haunting. An uneasy feeling washed over me. It was like someone was watching. I tried to ignore it. I spent hours wandering, trying to make sense of the sounds I heard. Faint laughter echoed around me. I looked around, but the place was empty. The laughter faded, and I felt a prickling on the back of my neck. I wanted to leave, but curiosity pushed me forward. In another house, I spotted strange symbols carved into the walls. What do they mean? I gasped when I noticed footprints in the dust. They were fresh, leading deeper into the woods. Anxiety fluttered in my stomach, but I convinced myself they belonged to another explorer. I had to see where they went. I followed the trail. My heart pounded harder. Suddenly, everything went silent. I held my breath and strained to hear something. A rustle? I thought I saw movement in the trees, but I couldn't be sure. Cold dread pooled in my gut. My legs felt weak. I walked faster, but it felt like something was right behind me, just out of sight. The island's secrets twisted in my mind. Just when I thought I could handle it, I heard a voice. It whispered my name, soft and chilling. I turned around, but no one was there. My breath caught in my throat. I felt a tightness in my chest as I quickly moved back toward the shore. That I glanced over my shoulder one last time. The woods seemed dark and foreboding. That voice echoed in my mind. I still don't know what watched me that day. I reached my boat and pushed off into the water. The island faded into the mist behind me, but the chill lingered. Even now, I can't shake the feeling that something is still there, waiting. The next morning, I woke up feeling uneasy. The island haunted my thoughts, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to go back. I had to know what was hidden there. I poured a cup of coffee, but my hand shook as I recalled that voice whispering my name. After some deliberation, I gathered my gear and headed back to the dock. The boat ride was rough, the waves crashing more violently than before. Each splash of salt water on my face reminded me of the chilling feeling that had wrapped around me during my last visit. When I reached the island, the fog had lifted slightly. It gave the place a new light, but I felt no comfort in it. I jumped ashore with renewed determination, gripping my camera tightly. I planned to document everything this time. I had a mission. I retraced my steps from the day before, scanning the trees and the old structures. I felt vulnerable, like the woods were watching me once again. I made my way to the old house, hoping to find more photographs or clues. The door creaked as I pushed it open, and a musty odor filled my nostrils. Inside, I began photographing the scattered memories once more. Suddenly, something caught my eye, a small, torn piece of paper stuck under a floorboard. I knelt down to retrieve it. It looked old, handwritten, and in a language I didn't recognize. As I folded it open, a sense of thrill coursed through me. Maybe this could be the story I was looking for, but then I heard it. A low, guttural growl echoed from the shadows beyond the door. My heart raced again. I had thought I was alone. The adrenaline surged as I moved towards the sound, my camera ready to document whatever it was that I cautiously stepped outside. The air felt charged. I glanced around, but nothing was there. My gut twisted with fear. I decided to head back, but as I turned, I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. A figure darted between the trees, too fast for me to identify it. I felt a shiver travel down my spine. I turned back to the house, thinking I might find safety there. But when I pushed the door open, it was no longer empty. Someone was inside. My blood ran cold as I scanned the room. I wasn't alone anymore. "Who is there?" I called, trying to sound courageous. Silence answered me. I grabbed my camera and took a few hesitant steps in. That is when I saw it, a shadowy shape standing at the far end. My hands trembled as I raised the camera, but before I could snap a picture, the figure vanished in a thin air. Panic gripped me. I didn't understand. There had to be some explanation. I took a deep breath, reminding myself I needed to remain calm. But then the growl returned, and this time it was closer. I knew I had to get out. As I sprinted toward the exit, the door slammed shut in my face. I screamed, but the sound swallowed into the stillness. What had I stumbled into? I was ready to confront whatever haunted this place, but now I was terrified of what it all meant. I had uncovered something more sinister than I had ever imagined, and as darkness loomed around me, I realized I was trapped both in the house and in a mystery far deeper than I could fathom. I pounded on the door, panic rising with each strike. My breath came in short gasps as I pressed my shoulder against the wood, desperate to find a way out. The growl echoed in the small confines, vibrating in my chest. I had to think. There had to be an escape. I turned around to scan the room. The windows seemed too high to reach, and the old furniture loomed like silent sentinels. I moved toward the shadowy corner where I had seen the figure. It felt like the only option. As I stepped closer, I noticed something glinting on the floor. I bent down to investigate. It was a key. My heart raced. Was it the key to the outside world? Before I could think any further, the growl escalated into a roar, and the room shuddered. I jumped, instinctively raising my camera, searching for the source. But the air felt heavy, almost solid, and everything was blurred by my mounting fear. I took the key and rushed toward the main door. I inserted it into the lock as a glimmer of hope ignited within me. But as I turned it, the door rattled violently, as if something on the other side was trying to break in. I hesitated. Did I really want to open this door? With a firm grip, I twisted the handle and pushed. The door swung open, revealing not just the outside, but a scene from a nightmare. The trees swayed as if alive, shadows twisted around me, and the growl morphed into a chorus of low howls echoing from the depths of the forest. I froze for a moment, the weight of the unknown pressing down hard. But the urgency to escape was too strong. I bolted outside, every nerve on high alert. The mist enveloped me again, cloaking my surroundings in a thick shroud. What had I seen in the house? What was lurking in the shadows? I could feel it watching me. That instinct, the primal connection to danger, tugged at me. My camera swung wildly as I maneuvered through the trees, snapping frantic photos in hopes of capturing something real, something I could confront later. Suddenly, I stumbled upon a clearing. The sun broke free from the clouds momentarily, illuminating a stone altar at the center. Chills raced down my spine. Drawings covered the stones, some were recognizable, but others were unsettling, twisted shapes that seemed almost alive. As I approached, the growl returned, now surrounding me, seeming to resonate from the very ground beneath my feet. Panic surged anew as I felt a presence behind me. I turned slowly, half expecting to see the shadowy figure again, but instead, I was met with silence. Then, out of nowhere, a scream pierced the air. It was raw and filled with agony. I whipped around, the world blurring as my heart raced. Where was it coming from? I couldn't tell if it was nearby or far away, but it filled me with dread that I was drawn to it. The scream pulled at my curiosity and fear in equal measure. I had to find out whose voice that was. But deep down, a part of me warned that I might not like what I found. But before I could decide my next move, the ground trembled and the howls reached a fever pitch. Whatever was in this place was no longer hidden. I felt the weight of its gaze on me, more pressing than before. The island was alive, and I was its prey. I turned from the altar, my mind racing with dread and curiosity. The scream echoed again, more desperate this time. The forest seemed to throb in response, as if urging me to decide to move or to stay frozen. I chose movement, adrenaline kicking in as I moved toward the sound. Every step felt weighted, as if the ground itself was reluctant to let me pass. I was acutely aware of how alone I was, the overwhelming wildness closing in around me. I strained to focus, to hear the direction of the scream above the howls that now seemed to come from all around. I pressed on, my camera at the ready, my fingers trembling as they gripped the shutter. I had to document this. Maybe I could make sense of it later. Just as I reached a thick patch of underbrush, the scream stopped, leaving only the rustle of leaves and the sudden silence. The clearing opened into another small area, less dramatic than the altar, but unsettling in its own right. I spotted a figure huddled on the ground. Anxiety clenched my stomach. What if they needed help? Or worse, what if they were one of the creatures? I took a cautious step forward, ready to bolt if necessary. "Are you okay?" I called out, my voice shaking. The figure turned, and I recoiled. It wasn't a human at all. It looked like a twisted version of an animal. Almost half-human, its skin stretched taut over bones, its eyes glistening with a wild hunger. I stumbled back, heart racing. The being growled softly, a deadly sound that sent chills racing down my spine. Then, with unnatural speed, it lunged at me. I barely had time to react, dropping my camera as I dodged to the side, fear electrifying my limbs. I sprinted back toward the trees, glancing over my shoulder to see it follow, low and menacing. Branches scratched at my arms and face as I pushed through. The growls surrounded me, a chorus of menace urging me to run faster. I had to get away, had to find somewhere safe. Suddenly, I tripped over a root, crashing to the ground. Pain shot through my ankle, but I scrambled to regain my footing, my breath coming in harsh bursts. I willed myself not to look back. I couldn't let fear paralyze me. I spotted a narrow path winding deeper into the woods, barely visible through the undergrowth. I dove into it, pushing ahead as fast as I could manage. I could hear it crashing through the brush behind me. Its breath labored, growing closer. I skidded to a stop at another clearing, panic threatening to swallow me whole. Before me lay a series of ancient stones, covered in strange symbols like the altar, yet different, deeper, darker. At the center stood an enormous, gnarled tree that twisted upward, almost reaching for the clouds above. As I caught my breath, I realized I wasn't alone. Shadows began to form near the base of the tree. They coalesced into shapes, dark figures merging with the growing twilight. I felt their eyes on me, each one like a pinprick in my skin. That S when I saw it, one of the creatures, not far from where I stood, staring with an intensity that made every hair on my body stand on end. It opened its mouth, a slow, guttural sound filling the air. I was caught between the looming tree and the figures that surrounded me. I could feel the weight of their gaze, pressing, waiting, and then, right before everything went still, I heard a whisper, chilling and soft. My heart stopped as the words echoed in my mind. "You should not have come here." The shadowy figures shifted, their eyes glinting like sharpened stones. I crouched low, my heart racing, desperate to escape their unwavering gaze. The whispers still echoed in my mind, chilling me to the bone. I had to find a way out. With no plan, I darted toward the gnarled tree, hoping I could use it as cover. The bark was rough against my fingers as I pushed against it, glancing back to see if they'd followed. To my horror, they were. I could see the desire in their eyes, a hunger that sent tremors down my spine. I could feel the energy in the air shift, as if the very forest was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I pressed my back against the tree, breath shallow, trying to think. I needed a distraction. Maybe if I could create some noise, I could slip away. Desperation fueled my thoughts. I remember the camera I dropped. I had to get it back. It could be my only chance to capture proof of this nightmare. I took a risk, sliding down the rough bark of the tree and preparing to make a dash toward where I'd fallen. But just as I turned to move, the creature nearest to me snapped its head toward the sound, and I froze. Its features were sharper now, more defined in the dim light, and I could see the jagged teeth bared in a primal snarl. If it took one step forward, I knew I'd be lost. I didn't have much time. The whispers began again, rising into a cacophony, urging me to leave, to escape. They grew louder, swirling around me like a storm. I could barely think above their frantic calls. Join us, become one of us. I pressed my palms to my ears, trying to shut them out. Just when I thought I couldn't take it any longer, the ground beneath me trembled. The ancient stones rattled, sending vibrations through my body. I glanced down, realizing the symbols on them began to glow faintly. An unexpected surge of light illuminated the clearing, catching the attention of the creatures. They recoiled, uncertainty flickering across their twisted features. Taking advantage of their moment of distraction, I bolted toward where I had dropped my camera. I dove, fingers grasping for it, just as another growl erupted behind me. I snatched it up and turned, raising it instinctively like a shield as I faced the figures once more. They hesitated, staring at the light emanating weakly from the stones. My heart raced with hope. Maybe the camera's flash could buy me some time. With trembling hands, I pressed the shutter, a bright light exploding forward. The creatures shrieked, retreating into the shadows. But the fear still gripped me. I couldn't let them regroup. I needed a path. I took a step backward, scanning the forest once again. That's when I spotted something on the ground, more stones. But these were arranged in a circle at the far end of the clearing, almost hidden from view. Could be a way out, or something worse. I had to know. I felt their presence steadying, waiting for me to make my choice. It was now or never. With renewed determination, I dashed toward the circle, hoping it held the answers I desperately sought. The shadows stirred behind me, their growls rising once more. Was this a sanctuary or a trap? I didn't have the luxury of time to figure it out. I had to trust my instincts. As I neared the circle, the air thickened, the weight of unseen eyes bearing down heavier than before. Each step felt like a heartbeat, loud and echoing. Just as I reached the center, the ground shifted beneath me. Then everything went dark. I gasped for air, my senses on high alert, but all I could feel was emptiness. The darkness pressed against my skin, thick and suffocating. I couldn't tell if I was moving or standing still. Panic crawled through my veins as I tried to make sense of my surroundings. Just as suddenly as it had come, the darkness faded. A dim light flickered to life around me, revealing a new scene that made my heart race again. I was no longer in the clearing, but in a small, cavern-like space, the walls glistening with moisture. The air was colder, sharper. I shivered on my right. I noticed a few glimmering objects scattered on the ground, pieces of broken glass and what looked like old trinkets. My camera was still in my hand, the screen cracked, but functional. I used the slight glow of its display to survey my new surroundings. It felt like I stumbled into some forgotten tomb. Unease settled in, melding with my fear. I cautiously approached the closest object, a rusted pendant, covered with intricate designs. The moment I reached down to touch it, a jolt of energy shot through my fingers. It was like a whisper, a faint echo of the cacophony I had heard before. What is this place? I muttered to myself, trying to steady my pounding heart. I could hear a distant sound, a low hum, or maybe even a chant, threading through the cave like echoing shadows. I needed to focus. So much had happened, and I couldn't afford to lose track of what was important. Then, I noticed something unusual on the wall. Symbols carved deep into the stone matched the ones from the clearing, glowing faintly, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. They looked like a language I'd never seen before, but the patterns felt familiar, almost inviting. I wanted to reach out and trace them, but I hesitated. This was new territory, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was being watched again. My instincts kicked in. I moved closer to the wall, camera ready, snapping photos in the dim light. As I did, a chilling realization hit me. Someone had been here before. The scattered objects, the darkened alcove, even the unsettling hum suggested I wasn't alone. What had happened to those who came before me? Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow shift, flickering in the edge of the light. My heart caught in my throat as I brought the camera up, trying to focus on the movement. There was again. I caught a glimpse of something pale and elongated slipping behind stone structure. Hello. My voice was a whisper against the walls, swallowed by the cavern. No response came. Only the hum grew louder, wrapping around me like a tightening noose. Steeling myself, I stepped forward, but the ground beneath me felt unstable. I stumbled, and as I regained my balance, I heard that revolting growl rise up from the darkness. Panic surged through me again as I raised the camera, my pulse drumlining in my ears. That's when the light from the camera flared bright, illuminating the dark corner fully. And standing there, half hidden in the shadows, were the creatures once more, their eyes glinting with hunger and malice. They were close, far too close. I backed away slowly, feeling the stone wall behind me, my breath rapid. There was nowhere to go. I wasn't just in their territory anymore. I had stepped into their lair. I lifted the camera, knowing the flash could only help for a short time. Then I saw a thin crack in the wall just behind the creatures. If I could reach it, but as the growls erupted in full, I knew time was running out. I had to decide, fight or flee. I darted sideways, instinct screaming to get away from those creatures. As I moved, my foot slipped on the damp floor, and I barely caught myself against the wall. I needed an escape route, fast. The crack in the wall beckoned me, a narrow chance to slip away from the growls that now rose to a frantic pitch. With clenched fists, I raised the camera once more and fired off a flash, creating a burst of blinding light that engulfed the space. The creatures shrieked in response, recoiling, their eyes now wide and wild. For a heartbeat, I felt power surge from the device, pushing back the darkness surrounding me. In that moment, I seized my chance. I sprinted toward the crack, forcing myself to focus on the small opening. The world shrunk to that single idea: get through, no matter the cost. I dove, scraping my shoulder against the rough stone, the cold air rushing around me as I slipped into the tight space that I felt the jagged edges digging into my sides, but adrenaline pushed away any pain. Behind me, frantic snarls clawed at my ears, each sound thick with rage. They were coming, but I refused to look back. I shoved myself deeper into the crack, dragging my body through until I broke free on the other side. I tumbled into the next room. I gasped, trying to catch my breath. This chamber was bigger, illuminated by patches of mysterious light filtering in from cracks overhead. My heart raced, but the air felt different here, less oppressive, almost inviting. I pushed myself up, scanning the area. This room was lined with more symbols, but they felt different, less threatening, more ancient. There was a sense of history here, as if time had passed without interruption. My eye caught a faint glimmer beside a pile of rocks. I approached cautiously, picking up what seemed to be a small, ornate box. The surface was smooth, etched with the same symbols. As I turned it over, I felt a warmth radiating from it, as though it had been waiting for someone to find it. My fingers trembled as I opened the lid slowly. Inside lay a small orb, glowing softly with colors that shifted like oil on water. It felt alive, pulsing gently in my hand. What was this? Suddenly, an echoing roar echoed from behind me. The creatures had found my escape route. I dropped the box, scrambling to find another way out, my previous sense of wonder evaporating in an instant. The sound of their snarls grew louder, filling the chamber with terror. I had to act fast. There had to be another exit, or I would face whatever those creatures were head-on. I took a deep breath and pushed forward, the orb forgotten for now, as I searched frantically for a route to safety. Then, from the darkness ahead, I saw flickering shadows. Something else was there, lurking just out of sight. I hesitated, dread setting in once more. Whatever lay ahead could either be my salvation or my doom. I stepped carefully into the shadows. As I stepped into the shadows, every instinct told me to turn back, but the sounds behind me pushed me forward. I squinted into the dimness, desperate to see what was concealed. The air grew cold, and I could feel a presence nearby, almost like a gaze studying me. Suddenly, I tripped over a loose stone, stumbling forward. I managed to catch myself just before hitting the ground and looked up breathless. There, I saw a figure cloaked in darkness, a silhouette just outside the edge of the faint light. My heart raced as I took a step backward. "Who is there?" I called out, my voice shaking. No answer came, just a rustle in the shadows that sent chills down my spine. The figure shifted, and I caught a glimpse of something, a flash of white, maybe a face. I couldn't tell if it was human or something else entirely. Instinctively, I raised my camera, holding it tightly. I was ready to capture anything that lunged at me. The roar from the creatures echoed again, this time much closer. I didn't have much time. I needed to make a decision. "Show yourself," I demanded, my voice louder and steadier than I felt. The figure lingered just out of reach, and I felt the urge to flee again, but curiosity anchored me in place. What if this was the key to understanding where I was? To my surprise, the figure stepped forward, revealing itself in a patch of light. It was a young woman, her clothes tattered as if she had been living here for ages. Her hair was wild, and dirt covered her face, but her eyes were piercing and clear. In her hands, she clutched a similar orb to the one I had dropped earlier. "What do you want?" I managed to ask, still not fully trusting the situation. "We don't have much time," she replied urgently, glancing over her shoulder into the darkness. "They're coming. You need to listen to me." With a jolt, I remembered the creatures and the roar that had echoed moments ago. The shadows behind me deepened, and I could hear their snarling grow louder. It clawed at my determination, raising my fear to a near panic. "I don't know who you are or what you want, but you don't understand. They're here to hunt us," I said, my voice rising. "I'm not your enemy." She stepped closer, eyes wide with urgency. "You don't have to be. The orbit's a beacon. It protects us, but only if we use it right. We have to activate both of them." "What do you mean activate?" I asked, my mind racing. Before she could answer, a loud crash echoed, and the creatures burst into the chamber behind me. Their eyes glowed with malevolence, hungry and feral. I felt a rush of icy fear, and the young woman grabbed my arm, pulling me toward her. "Now!" she shouted, thrusting the orb toward me. My heart raced as I took it, feeling its warmth pulse alive in my palm. Just as I managed to grasp it, the darkness exploded around us. The creatures lunged forward. My world spun, and panic surged. I couldn't see an escape. Then everything went dark. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me, the weight of it pressing down hard. I couldn't tell if my eyes were open or shut, but there was an unbearable silence, a void filled with nothingness. I squeezed the orb tightly, hoping it would ground me. A flicker of light pierced the shadows, faint at first, but growing more defined. I blinked, and slowly the world returned. I was on the ground, the cold stone biting into my back. The young woman was by my side, breathing heavily. The creatures had vanished, but the air felt charged, electric. "Are you okay?" she asked, looking at me with concern. "I think so," I managed. My heart thudded like a drum in my chest. "What happened? Where are they?" "They need to be distracted," she replied quickly, her eyes darting around the chamber. "That's why we need to activate the orbs together, but we need to find a spot where they can't reach us." "Can't you just use yours?" I stammered, still trying to comprehend the situation. She shook her head. "They draw power from the surroundings. We need both to create a strong enough barrier." Just then, I felt an ominous rumble beneath us. An unsettling crash echoed from somewhere deep within the structure. The ground trembled slightly, as if something massive was shifting too close for comfort. My stomach churned. "Come on," she urged, pulling me to my feet. "This way." We ran through the dimly lit corridors, navigating through shadows that clung to us like cobwebs. My heart raced faster with every step, fueled by adrenaline and fear. I glanced back, half expecting one of those creatures to burst forth, their snarling breath hot on my neck. "Over there." She pointed to an archway ahead, illuminated by a faint glow. I pushed ahead, driven by a rush of desire to escape. The archway revealed an enormous chamber filled with strange symbols, glowing faintly on the walls like ancient inscriptions. This should work. She stepped into the center, the orb in her hands, trembling with energy. I followed, unsure what would happen next. What do I do? I asked, holding my orb out. Now, she said, her voice firm. On three, we let them go. Let it go. The questions spilled from my lips, but I didn't have time for answers. She counted down, and my heart felt like it might explode. 3, 2, 1. We raised the orbs together. A brilliant light erupted, filling the room with warmth. I shielded my eyes, the brightness blinding, but I could sense a shift in the atmosphere. The oppressive shadows seemed to recoil, almost as if they were alive. Then came a deafening roar from outside the chamber. The sound echoed through the hall, closer now, vibrating through the walls. What did we just do? I shouted over the chaos, fear creeping back into my veins. That's when I saw it, she said, breath hitching in her throat. A massive silhouette loomed just outside the archway, blocking the light. Desperation clawed at me. We have to go. I grabbed her hand, my mind racing for a plan. The echoes of the roar were getting louder. Where do we hide? Before she could answer, the creature lunged into view, its eyes glowing like fiery coals. It had found us. My heart was hammering in my chest as the monstrous figure filled the archway, a chaotic mix of shadows and chaos. The air turned electric, sending shocks of panic racing through my veins. In a split-second decision, I yanked the young woman toward the narrow passageway off to the side. This way, I shouted, pushing through the darkness as my instincts kicked in. The passage was cramped, damp with moisture, and filled with shadows that coiled like serpents at our heels. Behind us, I could hear the creature's growl reverberating through the stone, an unsettling reminder of how close it was. My heart raced as we navigated through the gloom, trying to remember the turns we made, desperately praying for an escape route. Where does this lead? I yelled over my shoulder, trying to stay focused. An exit, she replied, adrenaline fueling her urgency. If we can reach it, we might be safe. Each word felt like a lifeline as we plunged further into the narrow corridor. My breath was coming in shallow bursts. I could hear the rumbling behind us growing stronger. The creature was relentless. It was only a matter of time before it caught up with us. Suddenly, a cold draft swept through, and for a moment, the ground beneath us seemed to tremble as though the very island itself was watching. I caught a hint of the jagged symbols from the ancient altar glowing faintly on the walls, almost as if they were guiding us. We bolted onward until we reached a heavy wooden door braced with iron bars. My heart sank. How are we going to get out? Help me with this, the young woman said, rushing towards the door. Together we pushed with everything we had. The door creaked, straining against the weight of the darkness behind us. With a final heave, it swung open with a moan of protest, revealing a faint glimmer of light. Go, I urged, shoving her through as the growls grew louder, angrier. I stumbled through after her, and we darted into what appeared to be a wide clearing, the moonlight spilling around us like a warm blanket. But the tranquility was short-lived. The howls surged through the darkness, echoing against the trees as shadows sprang from the gloom. We sprinted across the clearing, desperately searching for anything that could give us a moment's respite. Over there, behind those rocks, she shouted, pointing to a pile that looked like it could provide cover. We dove behind the rocks, just as a menacing figure burst into the clearing, its eyes glowing with rage. I pressed my back against the cool stone, the trembling young woman beside me. I don't know how much longer we can hold out, I whispered, panicked. Hold the orb tight, she instructed. It's our last hope. I glanced at the orb in my hand, feeling its warmth pulse against my palm. The creature circled the clearing, sniffing the air as it searched for us. The sense of dread twisted in my gut. The darkness that had consumed me for so long felt palpable, weighing on my spirit. It's drawing closer, I breathed. Suddenly, I heard that enchanting hum again, the same one that had thrummed in the cavern. The symbols on the orb glowed faintly, matching the pulse of the orb she held. It's time, she said, determination lighting her eyes. On three. As the growls converged on our hiding spot, I nodded, and we both raised the orbs, ready to channel whatever magic resided within them. 1, 2, 3. Bright light erupted from both orbs, illuminating the night and flooding the clearing in radiant energy. The growls transformed into howls of confusion as the creature recoiled, momentarily blinded. I could feel the pressure building between us, a bridge of energy reaching outwards, forming a barrier against the darkness. But just as the creature turned to reorient, disoriented by the light, an unexpected tremor rippled through the ground again. The shadows began spilling across the clearing like a dark tide, lashing out and consuming the light. "Focus! Keep it together!" the young woman shouted, her voice strained. The shimmering light pushed against the encroaching shadows, and for a brief moment, hope flickered in my heart. But then doubt crept and the weight of the darkness bore down on us, bringing with it whispers of fears I had tried to cast aside. "Don't let it go," I urged, feeling the surge from the orbs waning. "We can't stop now." She clawed for control, her voice rising with determination. But even as we fought, I could see it, that malevolent figure inching closer, and time seemed to drift away. Was this the end? Would we remain trapped, part of the legend of this cursed isle forever? I hardly knew where my instinct ended and desperation began, but in that last moment, a primal scream erupted from the creature, absorbing both the light and hope we had tried to summon. Everything cracked and splintered as the shadows coalesced, pouring into a new form, a grotesque amalgamation of my fears. Then, for a fleeting moment, the lights surged again, blinding everything, consuming the darkness. When the fury broke, all was still. I blinked, finally feeling the earth beneath me. Had we won? In the aftermath, we found ourselves standing amidst the wreckage of the clearing, nothing but silence remaining. The island felt different, then a stillness settled over it, but questions loomed. What had happened to the creatures? Were we, really? Had we truly escaped? I turned to find the young woman beside me, her expression mirroring my own confusion. "I don't know what just happened," I whispered, breathless. "Neither do I," she admitted, her eyes flickering towards the lingering shadows. "But we're not done yet. We need to leave this place." As we turned, I felt the weight of the island press against my back, echoes of its dark history wrapped in ambiguity. The secrets of the isle remained, unanswered, swirling like mist in the distance. Sometimes, it felt as though things weren't finished yet. Unseen eyes might still be watching, waiting for another chance. I could never shake the feeling that we were merely threads woven into its tapestry, and the island still had stories left to tell. Would we return? Would I ever be the same? I wasn't too sure. But one thing was certain: I'd never forget the darkness I dared to explore. I took a deep breath, ready to step back into the world, uncertain yet intrigued by the unseen, as the island faded into the mist behind us.